got it?
I think you're okay. Right? I can never remember.
It's that got it thing. I read someplace that if you don't, you got it, it doesn't work.
It's all scrolled.
I don't know if it's true, but
It's all
then,
right there. We'll
agenda.
update that.
you need the agenda, here's your name.
Thank
And
you.
you need a copy of the agenda? If anyone needs a copy of the agenda,
Yeah, we talked about having copies of ads available for people to write on.
agenda.
which is-
Now with the computers, though, there's
Anybody else?
up there, what,
Well,
rapid space.
I wish, yeah.
It's in the
We
electronic,
had a
yes.
real
but-
board one. We had a big-
Well, there was money left in the furniture. budget.
True.
Shall we start?
It wouldn't be as much as-
That's
I like the one that City Hall has. It's like as big as this room.
Oh, the one in the planning?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no, that's not the planning, that's
Yeah,
the regular conference room.
regular conference room. Yeah.
Shall we?
Sure.
Okay, first step, public comment. Do we have anyone who'd like to,
Who's out there? Anybody out
well,
there?
we have Virginia and
Oh.
Lori
Okay.
Fryer. And if there's anybody else I can't see, those are the two names I do. So, hearing no public comment. Treasurer's report.
the finance committee makes the recommendation that the board approve the, we have to find a list of pay the bills in the amount of. Sorry.
$53,805.27.
Thank you.
$53,805. All those in favor? Aye. And the finance committee is also making a recommendation, should we do this now? Treasurer, the treasury bills,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
the finance committee is also making a recommendation that the library reinvest the amount that of the 204,000. Sorry, 204,300, well, it'll be more than that.
It is a little more than
Right,
that.
yes, the reinvest the current balance in our treasury bills into 3 month treasury bills again.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm sure you're making sound much more.
Yep, I got it.
Oh, need a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Shall we say the last? for-
Right, is that gonna go down here? Well, yeah, it's on the agenda.
Yeah, we can wait till we get to.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right, got it, there we go.
Okay. So, consent agenda. I know there is no president's report, there's no Upper Hudson report. Building committee, I did not see one, but
I think, and I apologize, I think I had sent out the minutes of the previous month's building committee report after our last board meeting, so therefore, the previous month's building committee report should be in this current agenda. I've got a draft of the current or the most recent
okay,
building committee report, which is not ready for prime time for the full board at this point, but I believe the previous month should be enough.
because I remember seeing the agenda, not reports, but. And I will say there is no admin committee report. So we have the approval of the minutes of the meeting held November 8th and building committee report of. Yeah, it would be October.
Yes,
Okay,
And I'd like to have the minutes removed from the consent agenda.
okay. So for consent agenda, we're just doing the building committee report of October. I'll make a motion to accept. Need a second? All in favor? Okay, and since that has, the minutes have been polled, why don't we discuss that now? We need to remember that.
Okay. Just bringing them up. There were two things that I saw. One was that board was misspelled. It was spelled BAORD. In case you want to search on it. And the other was that it said that the conflict of interest statement would be signed by December 2023. It was my understanding it was by the December meeting, because it would be an annual occurrence, not just,
So you want me to remove the year,
yes.
is what you're saying?
Is that correct, Keith? That's my recollection that you reckon. that-
Yeah. You know, we were trying to set it up for the out years.
I move that the minutes be approved with the recommended corrections.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And out to the regular agenda, the foundation report. So the White Public Library Foundation met and discussed the grant for the Tri-Public Library. Their 2022 distribution of their funds. They discussed their finances, they discussed what was available, how to do it. There were some interesting thoughts about how much, etc. They were all given a request for $23,760 to cover our match for the removal of the EPDM material on the roof here at Maine. They also received an update on projects from 2018. So they understood what the project was, how much the costs, how much the other grants were given to us, and what their contribution was, and the outcome of each of those projects, you know, where it stood right now. So they had all the updates. So after they discussed this in rapid succession, always a fun meeting, they decided to give $23,668 to our project, to the library and to the project of the roof. So, well, they didn't ask this time, in keeping with their thoughts in how to do this, I had to have a motion about accepting their grant. So I will make the motion now, that the Troy Public Library Board acknowledges and accepts the $23,668 grant from the Troy Public Library Foundation. This grant is for use in meeting the Troy Public Library's match for the New York State construction grant, replacing the EPDM material on the roof of the main library building. The Troy Public Library thanks the foundation for this generous grant. So, any discussions, any thoughts, any comments on?
so good to you.
The only question I had was the original ask and then grant. You mentioned two numbers, and I don't know what they are. Or is it, how do they compare? More, less than, or equal?
They gave us a little bit less. I mean, it's
By
From-
approximately how much?
720 minus 668. I can do the math. I get lost in orders of magnitude and despite dyslexic. Yeah, something like that.
$58.
Oh,
I got it
Thank you.
but now I know.
Any particular reason that they would not give the rounded number that
That we gave
they
them.
asked? Yeah.
They again looked at their finances, looked what was available, where they needed to draw down that money. So the number of 23,668 was advised, and the rest of the board said, sounds good. So they went with it. Mine is not to question quite why, but
The number worked for that.
it worked for them.
And it.
And it's so close,
Yeah,
you know,
thank you.
there was a discussion of, should we do the same thing? Do we give way less? And that this was the number that they picked. I'm much happy with that.
I'll second it.
And I think it is good considering how the stock market has done.
Mhm.
this year.
Their stock market, yeah, they compared it to the Dow, the actual stock market. And well, the stock market went down X, they went down only 20%. But they admitted it was not good. 21% of the loss was not good. But they have an unrestricted and a restricted amount of money. They had some left over in unrestricted, but they also had expenses. So they looked at all the different angles and picked this one for the number. So we have the motion, we have a second. Any other discussion, by the way? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I just ask a quick question for the minutes? EPCM, all lowercase,
All uppercase.
all uppercase. Okay, thank you,
Oops.
Kristen.
I use lowercase. Next is our fiscal policy. So as at our last board meeting, the issue of the director's signature stamp came up. Since it affects how the office does business, the office did contact the auditor, per the board's suggestion. I sent the conversation to everyone in an email a while back. And then it was a question of how to write this in. I know that was another series of conversations and discussions in email. I got no negative responses to the last suggestion. So I am going to propose that as the motion, which I'll make the motion, we can second it and then discuss. I know this is not my usual way, but I think it's just easier to get through this. So if the director is unable to physically sign a check, the business manager has the authority to use the director's signature stamp as long as the director's approval was provided. So I will ask, do I have a second? Any discussion, any other?
I guess I still have the same question that arose at the meeting last time. Is the approval in writing? I think you asked about whether it's for each time or if it's a blanket approval. I think that still isn't clear.
And sorry, and I believe that Joy sent in an answer to everybody about that. And I think she pretty much covered those questions.
I may not have received it.
I'm
I
sorry.
can't get to my.
Okay.
Joy did reply back and indicated that they were one-time authorizations, not standing authorization. There was, it was mentioned, I believe, that it was usually covered in documented in email. And so the responses I thought were very good and made good sense. And as long as Joy and Paul are here, they're following that process. I'm completely happy with that.
Let me just add that part of the way that we operate here is that I approve every expense.
Yeah.
Every day. That's how we've operated for the past 33 years.
as I didn't quite finish my comments yet, so if I may continue. I have every confidence in all and enjoy using that process. All enjoy our individuals, and this policy is meant to be a standing, a basis to work from for all people who are involved. So hope we'll have no buses coming by that are errant, and that no accidents happen, and that somebody needs to be replaced the day after tomorrow. And that a new person might come into that role. So I think it'd be good if our policy or our manual, our practice manual, our written documentation that says what the process should be spelled out, either on this board level or on a operational level. But like I said, I don't think it's a question about the individuals involved. I think it has to do with should those individuals change, just that there's clear guidance that you're authorizing someone else to use your stamp, and that authorization is documented in some fashion, this email or letter or something that is traceable and findable by others after the fact. Concerned that a verbal leaves us all open for confusion and uncomfortable conversations down the road.
And I think it's a protection for the individual using the stamp.
Yes.
You
I
know,
agree.
should a question arise,
Yeah.
to have it in writing is really in the best interest of the person who takes on the responsibility of using the stamp. So I think, I think it protects joy.
And I know I answered the question. I think I said it to everybody that this is a policy. It's not a procedure.
And I said,
Yeah, and you agree. So
I
it seems like you agree.
I agree, as long as we've got it covered in
Mhm.
our procedures, and the
Okay.
procedures are written down.
Right.
If it's covered in the procedures, then I'm okay to defer to that, because it is a procedural matter.
Exactly.
I agree.
And this, it would make, if we went through everything and looked at procedure, this would be, the policy would be so cumbersome.
Well,
So,
I think it would be good to have in it that it should be in writing. And also that it's for each time.
okay. Let's see. I'll give you a scenario.
Mhm.
Paul somehow puts his hand in the beehive and both hands are bandaged and he can't write. I mean, we can take this to the nth degree where someone might think I'm being too facetious for words, but
Use the text, right, voice recognition
Yeah,
software.
there is
But that's not
technology
right.
that will.
That would,
Every organization has a culture, and every organization should have a financial culture. This is the way that we operate here, and that's part of the culture. I don't think you're ever going to write down everything you do.
And we're not trying to do
I
that.
think we are.
Well, I
It
just
sounds like
ask
it.
that it be in writing and ask that it,
There
you
are
know,
many things
be
that we do on a
documentation.
daily basis that you can write down. I mean, hundreds of things. I approve every expense that goes through here.
and if you're expecting the board to sign off, that we have financial fiduciary
But if
responsibilities.
you look at the culture of the organization, and you look at the audits of the last 30 years, and you look at, your budget as opposed to your expenses and your revenue, and I don't think you can find a lot of fault here.
Those things that you just mentioned.
I mean,
so,
and that's what culture, the financial culture is all about.
and certainly culture is important because there's probably no way that you can keep things from happening aside from the individual's integrity. But this is not so picky. I don't think to ask that our policy includes that it be on a per basis and also in writing is being picky.
Can
we
I just
know-
say, I just want to interject real quickly that I never use Paul's signature without his explicit permission every single time, because it's his signature. I don't just blanket stamp it everywhere. And then the second thing is I have no problem, and I always ask him via email anyway to approve certain things. And so that's not a problem for me. I just want to say that.
Right, so since you do that, why is it a problem to have it part of the policy that the board?
I can see where it might be in the procedure manual.
Procedure. Yeah, it's procedure. It's
Our
not policy.
policy should be flying at 5,000 feet, not at 500 feet.
Well, I think it should be in the policy that this is what the board is comfortable with. Maybe I've had more experience with embezzlement. And I know other people who've been on the board have also. And I do think it's also protection for Joy or anybody else who would be in that position.
And so Joy, I do applaud your fact that you get emails to document your use of that. And I think that's good practice. I certainly would encourage that myself. I do similar things. So I'm glad to hear you do that as well.
Mhm.
I encourage that continued practice.
Yes, I just always send Paul emails. His inbox is filled with my permission asking to do things. So I just want to let you know that that's no problem for me.
And it can be added.
We hope your replacement has similar. No, not that I'm advocating your replacement at all, but sometime in the distant future, I hope they continue that practice.
It's
I
not
was kind of
advocating
hoping
that,
on
please.
staying a little longer, but okay.
And certainly, you can think about that for the procedures.
Mhm.
Well, and since that is the general practice, I don't understand why people are reluctant to see it as part of the policy.
Because at a certain point, you have to know when to stop. That's
Well,
just
and-
my thought that.
And
you have to
we
understand the
obviously
distinction.
disagree
Yeah.
on
this.
where that is appropriate to occur.
So, since I think the discussion may have come to that point, there is a motion on the floor. It has been seconded, and I'm going to ask, all in favor? Oh, the motion being, if the director is unable to physically sign a check, the business manager has the authority to use a director's signature stamp as long as the director's approval is provided. And add that to the check signing page of the policy. I'm just calling the question. Ayes, do we have ayes here? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Ayes. Yes, right, I know.
Yes, you know what?
Nays,
I just was unsure what you knew.
well, if I pause, sometimes you say you might have to ask for nays, so I figured I'd say, I know. So, the motion passes and this will be written as such. And the details in the procedures. You know what, we're gonna switch two things on the agenda, if that's okay,
Sure.
and go to the retirement, because that we need to get out of the way. And then we can do trustees stuff later.
Just check something here.
Sure.
Okay. Oops.
Should we do Carolyn's motion first? Or,
You would have Paul discuss first, and then
oh, okay.
how's that sound? Yeah.
Okay, on the New York State retirement system, the folks in Albany have reviewed our staff roster and come up with a slightly different figure than they did in 2021. The estimated annual employer contribution at this point for the year would be 77,967. Their estimate before in 2021 was actually, I had it here somewhere. Was 92,565. So there's a difference of about 14,000. Now we had budgeted based on the figure of 92,000 that would be needed for the annual cost of participation. They also sent us an estimated deficiency amount. Now that amount is paid after the completion of the year for the next year. This is based on how many people actually sign up and how many, what kind of deficiency that we have. And their estimate for this coming year is 38,754, which is a little bit higher, about $1,000 more than they estimated originally in 2021.
So these estimates that you're quoting, the 77,967 and the 38,754 are both for 2023.
Sorry?
The estimated numbers, the new ones are for 2023.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Now, I have, in speaking to the staff, I kind of figured on a timeline of starting up at February 1st, which gives people time to review their TIA accounts and see what they want to do with those. And also to get some final information from New York State Retirement System about a couple of questions that we still have. So we would like to begin that. What they did send us was copies of a resolution that the board would need to approve in order to participate. And an affidavit from the fiscal officer, which if you sign, by the way.
I'm not on the hook for $77,000 now. am I?
Oh, yes, you are. If you sign, it's got to be in front of a notary, so we can't do it right this
Okay.
way. The resolution, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Troy Public Library just hereby elect to participate as an employer in the New York State and local employees retirement system and approves inclusion of its officers and employees in its such system in accordance with any and all of the laws governing such participation as yet set forth in the retirement and Social Security law as presently or hereafter amended altogether with any administrative rule, regulation, or directive governing the same. Wait, where wrote that in? Anyway, that's the resolution that they're proposing that we approve. And then that would be signed by the secretary.
Oh,
So,
can I so move that we
Yeah.
approve that?
Do you want to hear from, sorry, would you like to make?
Oh,
the
from the
finance
finance committee?
Mhm.
I guess so. No, I'll make that.
Okay.
But we'll just do the one that we can do the other, right? Because they're two
Yeah.
separate things. So the finance committee made a resolution recommendation to the board that we join the New York State retirement system in the amount of $77,967.
And then when you,
Anybody second it, please?
all in favor of the recommendation, and then, well, we're just accepting her recommendation. And now we're going to, who wants to? Because Paul can read it, but someone here needs to make the motion. Okay, make the motion. Do you want to read the whole thing?
No. I
Okay.
think
As,
we will supply that to the secretary.
yeah, done. All right, so you made the motion, we need a second for the motion,
I'll second.
and now discussion. Now we're discussing whether to actually do them as a privilege. Oh, before you wanted discussion, so I can,
I thought you were skipping over that.
that's okay. Anybody else?
I get to apply the great seal of the Troy Public Library.
Excellent.
I actually have that too.
So, oh no, you must do a live stream.
Is it a person?
It's, yeah,
Okay,
it's right here.
so we have the motion, we have the second,
Oh, is it that thing?
Yeah, the big.
we have the distraction. All in favor?
That's the, yeah, Carolyn will have to sign this. I'll have to go next door and find an
Or
over.
to the bank,
What's that?
go to the bank.
Yeah.
I can go to Big Associates.
You said no interest.
There's a couple people up at Big Associates have their notary. Can't they notarize it for me? I mean, does it have to be? No, up at Dennis's office. He's got a couple of
Oh, no,
people
no,
on
they're
staff.
right next door.
Okay,
They're all,
yeah, but I have to come back down.
they're all.
Then I have to come back down.
Is the one that I have to sign,
So
does
that's-
that need to be notarized?
What's that?
One that I have to sign, be notarized?
Yeah, now this is the one that you would sign, which is the resolution.
Does she have to, does it need to be notarized, the one that?
No.
Signing? No.
So officers can sign up too? Can we all sign up? Can we all sign up? No. It says officers, right?
No.
I think there's something else that you actually have to be paid as well.
Oh.
Yes, you know,
I got to say.
I think I-
It's here.
Carolyn is
Right.
responsible for the 76.
I have to come back and sign. Oh, the checks are here, aren't they? Well, I'll come down tomorrow and sign them. And then I'll go next
So you
week.
can take it over there.
That's okay.
Thank you. You can take it over there.
I'll come down and sign it tomorrow and go over there and get it done. And have it all
Okay.
done at once.
Yeah, because okay.
Trustee education. These are drafts, everybody. Not asking for approval now, just commentary. So there's two things here. One is a policy that we'll have to have in trustee education. And the other are some procedures that we would follow in trying to comply with the new legislation that will take effect in January 1st, 2023. So hopefully everyone had some chance to look at the two documents. The policy pretty much is taken from the legislation. And the legislation, the DLD opinions and commentary on the legislation. So this is how DLD has decided to have it roll out and work. And what's approved, what's not approved. So, and the last piece was taken from our fiscal policy. The policy, again, here is not so much procedures, it's just an all over cover. I'll start with that. Does anybody have any comments or critiques or anything else about the policy as as suggested.
Nothing jumped through the snow and bit me.
I'm not sure whether it was in the policy or in the other, but it seemed like it was doing the same thing twice, of having to submit anything that we've attended and also keep track of it ourselves. I wondered whether there was some way to avoid doing that twice.
Well, I would think that if you're sending it, somehow you've kept a record. And I think it's important for each member to keep their own records. If you don't want, I wrote, well,
There's no policy about how we keep records.
no, not yours,
We
mine.
can do the same policies that we use for
Yeah.
authorizing signatures.
Yeah, that's in the, I wrote that part, procedures. Again, that's not in the policy, that's in procedures. Why? These are procedures that have been, what? Maybe the written procedures.
Yes, exactly. That's all.
Yeah, procedures, not policy.
It's written.
We can talk later. I think you and I need to clarify something, but we can do that later. The how to submit is clearly laid out by DLD. That it gets sent to the president of the board. The president of the board gets to record them. They even had a suggested, spreadsheet. That's where all what should be included. They did not include costs, but I think that would be very good to track. They did not delineate certain things. They said that's up to your board, basically, to do. So that is why, this is kind of a mix of what's required and a mix of what maybe we should be doing, could be doing. And again, it's two things, but you have to send the one part that is required is that all trustees are to send verification or this, what do they call it? Or that's the signed self-assurance of completion to the president. The president gets to keep that. And it's later on submitted to the director. That's a given. I added the other part, and if people don't want it there, I would just suggest that it's a really smart thing to do to keep track of your own.
Well, I'm just glad that they're asking you to do it as it goes along, because this past year, when Paul asked.
Yeah, it's in the annual report.
Yeah, that it's, trying to remember, I actually did, so I think
Well,
it's,
that's the problem with this is, I think in the annual report, they're gonna be more specific
Yes,
this time around.
yes.
That's what I'm afraid of. We don't know until we actually see the report.
I added the ongoing basis because I think it's good to keep that procedure in there for the person keeping a record. So you don't forget or don't lose things. So I added that part.
Okay, keep in mind is that Verizon as an approved provider,
Yes, it is.
if we ask Tim to go over and do a presentation on, to the whole board about duties and responsibilities like they did before, then it's done for the year.
Yeah.
But anyway,
There's a couple other things that come through, which we can approach in January, is if you remember some previous presidential reports and Upper Hudson reports, is the program on diversity. That's still being offered free for this year. That's something that can be delivered here, although it's not done by Upper Hudson, but by the individuals they contracted for. I do know that there is going to be some tweaking of the actual curriculum. I still have my copy, which at some point soon I will bring to the office and people can get it. We'll have a chance to look at it and see if they're interested in doing it. We can talk about this, I think, in January. And then some boards are holding off on taking part in that because they're waiting for the required 2-hour.
it's even the abbreviated version is fairly long.
Oh, it's longer than 2 hours, but,
Yeah.
and that's an in-person thing. So those are some of the details we can go over what's available. Like I said, CDLC puts on so many wonderful programs through the year. And I say CDLC, I just want to remember if I'm going to say it right, the Reference and Research Library Resource Councils, which is for us CDLC here locally. Membership is $15 is the basics. If you're a retiree, I think you're a student, it's 50. And it's one of the best bargains in the world because you get into all the other let's make sure I'm right. Research research councils. And that's where Ask the Lawyer comes from one of them, not locally, but everybody shares nicely. So there's education out there. It is possible that other providers will be approved of as we go along. This is brand new to everybody, so everyone's working through it. But that's why I wanted to have some discussion. So you don't like that you will, how about advised? But if the word is changed to advised,
I don't know what word you're referring to.
okay. Then you do like the demonstration of completion. Where is it?
Each trustee will maintain their own records of compliance.
Yeah. Just you didn't like. Well, how about it is suggested that trustees
I mean, that's fine. As you pointed out, if you're submitting it, then you have a.
record. So the will
record.
is okay with you in this sense? To me, it's not
It just sounded redundant, having to do the same thing twice. So.
well, you don't do anything, but once you have it, you have it, in your folder. Sending it is an electronic copy or a copy of the actual paper copy or the submission.
And a sample form for that will be provided.
Yes, I have to figure out how to actually get it into the Dropbox. I did not. That's an electronic thing that I was not ready to do. There was something else I had to do today. Thank you for reminding me. And you can nag me for that one too. So any other thoughts?
And we'll be informed about what are approved opportunities.
How do I put this?
I'm not saying it should be part of that, but just it would be helpful for us, to be informed what is.
To keep up with some idea of what's being offered?
Right, yeah, that, so what you can take to meet that versus.
Or if there are opportunities to do that here during a meeting, so what we did a few years ago when we had for training.
You know, like the court counts.
Yeah, that's something.
Yeah.
I just want to see.
But they're suggesting that we don't go through court again, that we've all done it. So it might be, I like that word redundant, that we need to move on to something.
My question is something we can do.
As a group,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's what
That's-
Paul was suggesting. For example, when Mary and Paul came in, Mary Fellows came in with Tim Burke and did the thing on early childhood literacy. That probably could count. I say probably because we want to make sure, but that is something that we should be aware of as board members about some of the issues that affect library services. And again, the topic areas are literally from DLD. I didn't make the topics up at all. So as long as something comes up, and I know Tim and Mary are working on some other things. There was a request pre-COVID actually for a fiduciary workshop. And I think they're working on that. I don't know where that stands right now. But little by little, sure, if there's something that's coming from Upper Hudson, I usually put it in the report. I am a little reluctant to put it in a procedures because we're out, but certainly as a person that gets these things and material, I'm less likely to pass on certain CDLC things because where the library trustees previously used to be covered by the institutional membership, it no longer is. So I become a personal member and I'm a little reluctant to send on material for registration if people aren't members. if people have decided to join CDLC, and I'll put some information out for each of you about their, I think I put some information about their pricing in the previous president's report. I know the year starts in January 1st and goes to December 31st for membership. Nyla, I want to check in to see what their latest is, and now that they've maybe taken a breath or two, whether or not, as trustees, we're still covered under the institutional membership. Many of you who have gone to activities get such things, and certainly if Nyla is still considering us as trustees is covered, I'll keep sending things out. Or I say continue. I'll start sending more of that material. I try to do whenever I can. Mostly do, but I'll make sure that people are aware of NYLA programming. So far, they haven't done a lot of little workshops. And I've never done one with Junction. So again, any other thoughts, commentary?
Well, you have non-compliance here.
Oh, yes. Oh, there's two things that don't have any.
What happens if you don't do this?
There's one. Here's one. Let's go with cost of compliance. I certainly made my suggestions on how to do this. This is saying, and these are suggestions. This is not from the legislature or the LD. The LD is kind of silent on it, says you guys decide. So I thought request in advance, not just reimbursement, because that way, what is financially capable for the person and what isn't. I thought but the question was, how much in advance of a program does the board want to be approached with the request?
As of the size of the request, it's $2. You can do it this afternoon. $200.
We have to be at a board meeting, so it has to.
Okay, so how much in advance?
Yeah.
So it's
We need to make it as easy as possible because we want people to
Mhm.
to do this.
Exactly. So do you have a suggestion of the time frame?
Why don't we say that under a certain amount, approval exists and you don't have to come and ask for it? Because what if you only find out 2 weeks, beforehand and the board meeting has already gone by? You don't want people not to do something. It's an approved, has to be approved anyway, as far as the content goes, who's providing it. So it's not like you're approved. So what are the purposes of having people seek board approval? One, making sure that there's money to do it.
Which is what, yeah.
But secondly, if it's an approved program, then we wouldn't be denying it on that basis that it isn't approved.
Right, but I'm sure can't these, I'm not, but these organizations, I'm sure, offer a lot of different programs, some of which probably wouldn't. Maybe you would take something and then it wouldn't actually fall under something that is part of a trustee education policy. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe it's
So
not.
you're saying that maybe
You could possibly sign up for something, take it, and then find out, oh, that really, even though it was provided by one of these people, it doesn't really count towards trustee education. Because it's meant maybe for librarians. Or, you know what I mean?
So how would having it come for board approval?
I don't know. I would know
Avoid
somebody
that.
would know. I don't know.
And I just want to clear, it isn't there was a line that is no longer in our fiscal policy. That board members had to get approval of going to an event, a program. And if an individual wants to go, that's up to them. This is not an approval of them attending a program. It is not requiring anyone to submit an expense report. This is for someone who may, well, if you really want to, there's,
$25 per year, up to 2 occurrences per year.
Per person.
Yep,
And for more than that,
then
They would have-
come see the board.
$5 a year. Up to 2 occurrences.
Yep,
Well, $25 a program or $25,
a program, up to
Okay.
2 occurrences in 1 calendar year. After that, come see the board.
here, and the year still be defined as the annual January 1st to December 31st. And again, no one has to actually submit if they don't want to. This is not requiring anyone to say, pay me back. Library to pay them back. And I'm trying to think, because my brain is trying to work on whether or not this works with a policy of board approves any expense. Still submitted in advance or no?
You don't have to submit
Okay,
in advance. Less than 25 or less, and if it's your second occurrence or less per calendar year.
so pre-approval not, okay, not required. Okay, do people like that? I will type it in and again, this is not, I'm not setting up for approval today. It just,
This is a procedure.
got the procedures. And even the policy, we know we have to do it, we know oh, you can have that thing, I can even see that without my glasses.
Sounds like we're talking about a procedure. It doesn't sound like we're talking about a policy.
Yeah,
It takes a
no,
policy.
what I'm saying is I'm not asking for approval of either the policy or the procedures today. We'll put it on the agenda for January. But the most important thing was having some procedures understood before January 1st. And that was the request, the question was asked about when do you want to have this ready? And I said, how about 1/1/23? So at least it's in progress, so that our next January meeting, we could say, this sounds good. Again, it's a work in it I'm sure it may be amended as we go along. So if it's over 25, I'm sorry, I'm gonna be real picky. If it's over 25,
Come see the board,
a month before, 2 months before,
week before the meeting.
a week before the meeting,
Yeah.
you'll send it to the board?
Yeah.
Well, I should say, a week before the meeting, but how much before the program?
For the meeting,
Doesn't matter. Just want to make sure.
if your program's a day after the meeting, you got approval at the meeting, great.
Week before.
and so what, it doesn't stop you from coming in 2 board meetings before either. You
Right,
know that.
At least.
right, but I'm just not to be picky. But so if they got approved at the board meeting, then they would have to write the check. So it would be approved, even though it wouldn't be like approved by the finance, it wouldn't be in all those bills that we had approved, but it'd be in a separate.
But you get,
So it's-
you get reversed.
And then if you-
Okay. Okay, all right, got it.
Okay. Reimbursable. Well, I'll try to manage some words about reimbursable if. I think that covers that part. And non-compliance, the DLD also suggested that we all talk about non-compliance. People have not, at the end of the year, done 2 years, 2 hours worth, 2 hours of education. So I wanted to get some commentary on what people thought the consequences should be.
So
Oh,
the state has no consequences, that's correct.
Well, DLD put no consequences that I could find as I went through it. They may come up with something at this point, but they
What
were.
would say, consequences as outlined by the state.
There you go. I like that. I like that.
It's not, right?
Really? Say that again, as outlined by the state. So if one of us doesn't, I guess there's,
Up to the state to figure out what we're gonna do about it. I think that-
And I mean, I'm sure other people feel free to remind us when we haven't complied.
Right.
I'm so
We're just
sorry.
throwing back on
Control
people.
us.
Okay.
Be Sean.
Well, not in the purposely none of this. Hopefully, the president of the board will remind people at a certain point. By the way, you need to do your droughts. Hopefully. All right, so I'll, oh, not as much remanaging and reworking of this as I thought. It took. Yeah, okay. Well, that is done.
Actually, DLD is being very generous on the time frames compared to other state agencies.
Yeah, 2 hours.
Well, we're just glad that they came up with who their providers are gonna be and what the topics were gonna be and some of the other things. All right. Director's report. Hey, back
I
to you.
do, I don't have a great deal because we covered the lieutenant system and also the reinvestment of funds. I did include the obituary on my report. Fatima was hired just in September. And we all, as a staff, look forward to working with her, and we're all very sorry that she passed away. So I just wanted to include the obituary. It's quite an amazing story. The other thing is we were supposed to have a disclosure of conflict of interest statement. And if people would like, seems to me everybody could simply sign this and turn it back in.
Oh, is it different?
And I would put them in my file. And it would be clear for another year. Lay it down. No.
Yes, I got that.
And that's to be signed by the director and
What?
the director
Yeah, I would sign one
and
too.
also Joy.
Sure.
Yeah, no, we would do that, but we can do that at our leisure. But the board is only meeting once a month.
At your leisure within what time frame?
One day
December. Within
tomorrow.
Can I just ask a like clarifying question about the,
Okay,
in the event that I have a conflict associated with my profession, but disclosing that conflict would result in a HIPAA violation, do I just disclose that I have a conflict and I can't share the details because it's a HIPAA violation? And is that considered sufficient?
I don't see any other way out of that one.
And I realize that this sounds like a very bizarre, unlikely. However, I've already become close in one situation, so I just want to clarify for sure.
I don't know, what do we think? What do we
Yeah,
have?
what else can you do?
I mean, can you, is it possible to place a limit around which aspects of the board's activities may be in conflict?
No,
Would that mean then you'd have to recuse yourself
Right.
from all votes from now on?
I don't think, if in the situation where it was close, had things evolved in a certain way, I would have recused myself from that vote. However, they did not evolve in such a way that I needed to recuse myself.
I think basically the idea is this, you know, if you had something that you had a question of, you would say, I have interests or commitments to disclose and describe whatever that was. Doesn't mean. I mean, at that point, I guess the board would decide whether that you're not, you have to excuse yourself from a particular vote.
So I just wanna
I
like
think,
clarify that.
We do.
yeah, I think that's would be the procedure, and that's what this is about.
And this is the reason why boards of attorneys use the research when you need it.
I think the,
I currently have none, so I'll just check now for now and we'll cross that bridge if I'm on your phone.
I will just put all in the file. Okay. Okay.
I'm borrowing your pen, Joy.
Well, I got one here.
Sure, no problem.
I try to always put anything I borrow back.
I appreciate that.
I believe that's all I got.
You only got, okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. Old new business.
At what point do we say thanks to the staff who planned the party?
You can do that right now.
Well, yeah.
You got them.
Thank you to the staff, Virginia, Lori, and others who planned and executed the holiday party.
It was great fun.
Okay. Any other old new business?
Yeah, I'm thinking that. Well, was the library, I love my library thing after the last board meeting? The shopping day, which was a huge success.
It was, well, I think I can speak to this.
Okay.
I know that Freda was wanting to appear tonight to speak about some things, and I don't know if you would like,
Yeah, I can say a few words.
and then I'll answer the question.
We've had a couple of meetings recently with the Friends, in response to my suggestion. And this was basically a suggestion and an idea that the Friends, handle some of the fundraising that the library does, and so that it would really come from 501c3 organization and not from this body. It was discussed a couple of times in the meetings, and then we discussed it here too. I had a meeting with Freda and Phil, and they have agreed to tackle the fundraising for the library. They would like to start by doing a letter sometime in the spring, but they would also like to have the letter target a specific service area that the library is involved in. And we're kind of leaning towards technology at this point, so that we can be very specific in telling people the need here at the library. And I think people feel better about contributing to a very specific service. So that's where we are with the fundraising idea.
I will add that at their last board meeting, they've decided to not just wait until this letter goes out, but to start with $5,000 of seed money that is available to them. And they will be approaching staff. They have a form that will be submitted to staff to request money
Well,
from
we
the
have
Friends.
formalized the process a bit more.
Yeah.
In that, we'll make written requests and then make reports based on how the project went and how the money was spent.
Mhm.
So it has been much less formal
Right.
in the past.
So they're formalizing the process, starting with the $5,000. Staff will be requested. They decided that maybe in conversation with Paul, too, that their focus will be on maybe service and programming and things that will make the environment of the library more comfortable for the patron. So that's where they're headed right now. I'm sure that at some point Freda would like to, she had a conflict tonight, to expound on that. But so the Friends have been very thoughtful about funding, again, continue to fund.
So that amount that's in our budget, which is significantly higher next year than it was this year, the Friends will now be responsible for that?
And they don't. They thought that was
I
kind
thought
of.
it is a plan.
I know that, but it is our plan. I mean, we have it in there. We're expecting that
It's-
amount of
this is
revenue
how-
to balance.
They mentioned that.
So I should hold
Just
their
saying.
feet to the.
No, I'm just
fire
saying,
and say-
I just want them to, in taking this on, do they realize
Yes,
what the end game is, or are we gonna offer them assistance, or, I mean,
Oh, lots of assistance, yes.
you know, I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot for.
Yeah.
Take on.
and certainly we can be their ambassadors as we are advocating for the library. We can advocate for people to join the Friends. You know, if they had more members.
I personally would love to see an event.
So would I. So would then that be the Friends' responsibility,
I think at this
because
point,
it's a fundraising thing, you know, I mean, there's,
Yeah.
I understand why, we should not be fundraising ourselves because we are a taxing district. But
Then you know, a venue that could host that event.
such as the library.
What a great idea. Oh, just. Benefits election Prospect Park.
what happens in you?
So I'm sorry, you mentioned $5,000, you mentioned staff, so we're gonna hit up our own staff for $5,000?
No, they can answer.
So please, there were a lot of pieces you hinted at, I just haven't quite heard the,
I thought it was, sorry, sometimes I think I'm clearer than they have $5,000. They are going to staff with their form and saying, please make a request. Then they will take the forms and go, yeah, we'll fund this, we'll fund that. They will go through a process and fund some of the activities that staff thinks, or projects that staff thinks are appropriate for the library.
programmatic projects,
So what?
programmatic.
Programmatic, but there might be some other things that are still there to make the place more comfortable. I know they're doing the Lansingburg, they're working in tandem with the library for the
Part of the
Backspace and
conversation
putting in a new road, so.
that we had was, I think the Friends are much more interested in the service aspect of, you know, what we do and more interested in supporting that
Sure.
rather than bricks and mortar, so to speak.
I understand that, I'm just trying to understand what the $5,000 was and what the
Their
goal
money.
was for that.
Their money and try to make what we offer the public better. Does that clarify it a little bit better for you?
That
Am I making more
does,
sense?
that does clarify what the current plan or what the current, the next step is. Thank you for explaining that to me at the ancient hearing, then what the thoughts are in terms of how that moves forward to next steps and next plans. If they're doing fundraising, how does that, how do their, how do we share goals and objectives?
I will say one is they seem to be a little less. They had some more reservations about doing a big event. They don't have that capacity at this point. And even they're. But they want to keep working now and not wait till this letter goes out. So they say, "We have this," and it's not like they have not been funding
Oh, yeah.
many projects. And maybe even well beyond the 30K already. So, but they did notice that number. But anyway, so we're very grateful to the Friends and everything they are doing and are willing to do. And the fact that they're discussing this and looking at projects and being there for the library.
And they might be open to participating in larger ventures in the future. Is that something we?
Depends on their capacity.
Are they concerned about their financial status with the IRS?
That has come up too. Yes, they want to show caution in what they do.
What does that mean?
If, I don't remember whether it's the amount of cash on hand or the amount you generate during a year, but it under a certain amount, it's very simple to file. Your yearly filing, but over that amount, and you have to do much more elaborate reporting. So, and I just don't remember what the amount is, maybe under 50,000 versus over.
So if we were to attempt to write a grant through, or if the Friends were to attempt to write a grant on the library's behalf for a capital project that was $500,000, if they had some support in writing that grant, would they be open to writing that grant, or something like maybe not? Maybe that is.
That doesn't sound like, again, it's a capital project. They're
I'm really honest and open about that. We're talking about
Not
fundraising.
really what we envision.
it's a work in progress.
There are small grants
I'm trying to understand what we're trying to
that
envision.
only nonprofits can apply to. These are small. I mean,
But there may be also larger grants.
Couple thousand,
Would that be
you know.
something that would be open to, or they're saying?
and
no?
I think that's something that we haven't really discussed, but I
that's
think they
not-
might be open to. Most grants, however, that I've discovered are still open to us. So it hasn't been a major issue, but there are, like I said, there are some smaller grants that say you have to be a nonprofit, officially 501c3.
Again, new work in progress.
So
Going through.
who does the check get written to?
What's that?
When somebody wants to give, does the check get written to the library or to the Friends?
I envision a check would be written to the Friends of the Troy Mountain Library. Yeah.
Mhm. That's how they're seeing it.
If they're doing the fundraising for that project. Otherwise, no, it's written to the Troy Public Library. If somebody just donates, we have a lot of people who just donate.
Mhm.
Or we'll get them all.
And will they have access to our email list?
They have,
Yeah, we can arrange that.
I believe they have. Okay.
Well, we have to do that.
Well, they have.
That goes from the
Not all
library,
that. What?
that goes from the library on behalf of,
Yeah, I
rather
mean,
than
the request.
giving the email address to.
right. No, we request that from Upper Hudson. So,
And in answer to that question about my library fundraiser,
Yeah,
I hear it was one of the best ever.
that's what I had heard too.
Yeah, it was the best ever. Do I have the number right in front of me? No, because
1,200.
I think they did $6,000 worth of
Sales,
sales.
and we get
Yeah.
20%.
Yeah,
and it
And plus
was
how many books too, that people
a
bought.
lot of books, yeah.
a lot of books. And I think it was one of the most successful days of Market Block.
I
Not just
know
for our fundraiser, but for Market
I
Block
don't know what happened
Sunday.
this year that.
They did do, yeah, I know
They
they
did,
did
but-
well, really well with
Yeah.
it.
Was this your idea original?
I love my library. Yeah, yes, that when we started.
For baby.
Well, I used to work, I was working at both places. Made it easy. Now I work nowhere.
That's a good thing.
This is in-
Gallivanting around.
That's right. Who knows where you'll see me, right, Corinne?
Oh. Okay, other old new business from anybody else? One of the things that we've just been talking about too is last month in the president's report, I mentioned, or the Upper Hudson report, can't remember which one. The intellectual freedom petition that's going on, the group that is looking for people to sign on. Paul has signed on as an individual member. Upper Hudson signed on as organizationally. So if you don't mind going back, not now, but going back and looking at the two reports, it's in one of the two, sorry, I'm not sure which one. So we can bring it up for January and decide whether or not we as a group would like to join, as an institution.
It's basically in support of libraries who are facing banned book issues, which is
Thank you.
significantly increased over the last few years.
That's what I hear.
Okay, and there's something else I forgot. Community feedback.
I have some. One person said that she hoped that we would do story blocks.
Yeah.
What was that face about?
We don't know, it's just that it's the middle of the winter and we have them down in the park and we usually wait till spring.
So you are planning to do one,
Yeah,
in case I see that person.
it's still on the agenda.
Planned. And the other person wanted to know whether we were, he said that he understood that Russell Sage is required to do community work as part of their education, the students, and whether we were using that resource here at the library.
Which one now?
Russell Sage.
Oh. Not recently. We have had volunteers from RPI who do have to do community service, but we haven't had anybody recently from Sage. I'll have to ask them about it.
The other, right?
Yeah, just those two.
In tandem with that, I was talking to someone who said, don't forget RPI's got lots of resources. I'm going, well, we have in the past. So it was also recommended to talk to RPI about some of their, maybe a class of one of their classes can come down and use it as a class project.
Speaking of community feedback, I did get an email from Chris Nolan, Deputy Mayor. And it sounds like they're working on maybe getting the checks ready for the ARPA.
Oh, wow.
It sounds like that. I mean, I could be.
For the what?
ARPA.
So any other feedback or, okay. Public comment. We are getting into it this month, yay.
Where's the button?
Hello, any public comment?
Everybody seems to be quiet right now. I don't know if
We're finally doing this again. Watching TV. Jeffrey's, no, not Jeffrey's.
Yeah, I guess.
I guess watching some of these board meetings is like watching paper. All
oh,
right.
Lori wants to say something.
Oh, Lori does, yay, go Lori.
Oh, no, I just wanted to prove that I wasn't watching TV.
Oh, okay. I was not also watching TV. Just
I would be.
Yeah.
Multitasking.
That's right.
No separate issues.
All right, so. That's good. Well, folks, believe it or not,
Wow.
we seem to be done. There's something else that hasn't been done. I feel like something's wrong. Date and time of next meeting, January 10th, 2023. 5 o'clock finance, 5:30 regular, unless something was good. You made a motion to adjourn. Second? All in favor?
Right?
Aye, aye.
Wait. Do I need to sign out of this or shut it down or anything?
Yeah, just not.
Shut down?
Uh,
The battery seems